Hi, my name is Jeff Schroeder. This is my Classic Space 40th anniversary build. If we kind of work our way through this, I built with all my blue and light gray, but then I added my mountains in dark bluish gray, and then I added the crystals all over it to make this a mining colony. When I was a kid, I had Lego in the 1987s, and so I just kept playing with it and stuff like that. And then I lost all my Lego when I was a kid, and I got out of my dark ages, and I came back into it when I got a big job. So in this display over here, we have a big Squid Monster that's got all these red guys that have been attacked by it, and all those guys are kind of getting killed, and I kind of wanted to bring a reference to Star Trek there, because all the red shirts are getting killed. And so we have little funny Easter eggs going on. One guy's walking off with his arm pulled off, and another guy's hopping away with his leg and his hand and stuff. And so this is just one of the fun things we try to do in display. Then as I was building and stuff like that, one of my friends had a bricklink store, and he had a ton of these little insect aliens that he couldn't get rid of them. And I said, well, I need some minions to do some trouble around the place. So we had these aliens are coming in through this portal that I made, and then they're getting into trouble all over my space station here. And so I was like, okay, well, now I've got guys getting in trouble, so I need some place to put the bad guys. So I did a space police section. And so we built the space police, and so we have jail cells to put them into and stuff like that. And so I choose Space Police 2 because the trans green was a little bit easier to get a hold of than trans red. And so I kind of like the color match. It stands out away from the blue and the gray and everything. So it gives us some color differentiation.
It's a nice contrast with the other kind of classic space look.
Yeah. Right here in the middle of Space Police, though, we have some guys doing roller derby. You have the blue versus the red. So I thought that was fun because when we do conventions in Houston, Comic Palooza always has a roller derby girls skating around. So I was like, okay, I want to do something for them. So they'll stop by and we can chat with them. So they always love to see that part. Then we move around here. I wanted to build something tall because I felt like, well, I'm on a mountain, but everything's kind of low. So I built this large platform here, which is a launch platform. And on the other side of it is a Galaxy Explorer attached to a booster rocket. Well, you got to launch the Galaxy Explorer into space, and so I just figured I'd add that in there. And then I wanted to have fun with the base, and so I added custom built a bunch of little aliens. And so, well, if you have aliens and you have a bunch of them, well, you had to have a queen, so I ended up building a queen. And so there's a queen alien with eggs in the bottom, and the whole entire tower is infested with them. And, of course, if you look in the reactor, there's a corn guy inside the reactor, so I guess he's going to become popcorn. I don't know. So we had a little fun with that. And there's a lot of custom builds on my display. I'd say about 40% is probably original sets from 87 or 78 to 87. And then some of the sets that are at the end of 85 to 87, which are normally blue and white, I recolorized back to gray and blue, so they kind of, with the trans yellow, to blend everything in. Right there, I've got the Ghost from the Star Wars, but I recolorized it to be the blue and the gray, and then I added some custom stickers, or they're actually water transfer decals that are made by Fine Cloniers. Jared is a good friend of ours, and he's in Houston. He does a lot of the custom minifig stuff, and he wrote 2 of the books for it. So he does a lot of my decals, so I can add that Classic Space decal to a lot of my custom builds to make it look like it really belonged in all the different work. Mm-hmm. As we move around, there's just, like I said, there's lots of Easter eggs. I threw some Yoshis in there. I think that's Kevin Hinkle's design that I found online, so a little props to him for that. And so I just kind of threw them in there. Kids love to find the little fun things and stuff like that. I kind of like to recolorize some stuff. So there's the Star Wars Beast, what it is. I can't remember the name of it anymore, but I recolorized it and put a pink astronaut on it, and it's kind of fun there. Everybody recognized it. I say, what's that doing in there? That's not space. I said, well, it looks like it now. And then I added, I think sometimes when you have a Lego display, it's like fishing. If you make some movement happen, it kind of attracts kids to it. So I added like this oil rig here and this spinning the spinning radar dish, and it's got some old Lego fiber optic cable in it in 9-volt. Because Monorail's a lot of 9-volt, I ran a lot of old 9-volt stuff, and so I hooked it up to NXT motor, and then I put a drilling rig over on the other side to drill a hole into the mountain, and ran some cable through that, and I ran it on the NXT motor, and it kind of makes it move randomly, and it just kind of attracts kids to it all the time. So I felt when I first started building my displays, they were just kind of sitting there, and people would look at them real quick and they'd go away, but then this just really got the kids coming all the time. And so then this big mountain here is actually totally modular. I found that I had to display sometimes in big places and sometimes small places. And so I was like, well, I want to be able to take, so I can actually pull, it's 9 32 base plates. And actually you can pull the middle sections out and bring the 4 corners together and actually they match up perfectly. Or you can drop the middle sections out on the other side and do it be a 2x3. And so I kind of created it modular so I could do different things with it and stuff. I always love putting the Easter egg in there. I got the alien that ripped Krusty's head off right over here on the left-hand side. I always wait to see if people will find that. And we did a little Katy Perry on top. You got the left shark and the right shark, you know. And I didn't even think about that. And somebody said, oh, look, there was a shark in my display one day. And they said, oh, that must be the left shark. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just put the left and the right shark in there, you know. And so we added a little old arcade-style video game down here in the front. And the guys are playing it, you know, just kind of sitting there. And then, well, if you got aliens... I took all the Toy Story aliens and dogpiled them on top of an alien because supposedly they're indestructible too. So I kind of just, I had a guy who had like a whole bunch of those little Toy Story aliens, and I said, well, they got the little classic space symbol kind of on their chest. Let's just put them around getting into stuff and having fun.
And we see the train going by here, and you got, I think, 3 trains running on the monorail, so if you can talk a little bit more about those.
Yeah, so I liked monorail trains when I was a kid, but I never had enough money when I was a kid, and I always saw them in the little catalog, and I was like, oh, I didn't get any of those. So when I started collecting, the first thing I always wanted was a monorail, so I got a monorail. And I was like, oh, it's so thin and it's so small. And so I started building a bigger and thicker. So now it's more of a 6 or 8 wide like the train guys do. And so I was like, well, 2 cars is just not enough. I wanted to extend it. So I started extending the cars. 3 of my 4 trains have been switched over into power functions because I wanted to be able to control them. So they're not just the 9-volt system. I still run one 9-volt system over on the far side, but I added different types of cars and different designs. I look around on Flickr for a lot of ideas, and I guess like everybody, we steal ideas and add to it and stuff like that. They have lots of different panels and stuff like that, so I can stop some here. So you can lift the fronts of all of them and see inside. They're kind of detailed. I've got lights in there. I added some details in each one of them. These have been rebuilt so many times because sometimes I do a display at a children's museum and the kids grab my trains and throw them off.
Okay.
And
That's always fun.
Yeah, I've had to actually totally rebuild many of these multiple times, and I always elevate my track so when something derails, the train goes falling to the table and you're rebuilding it again. So I kind of, it's almost like it's a kit now. I can just rebuild it really quickly. They all pop loose so you can get to the battery pretty easily and get into it. I had to learn that the hard way where I built it, and then it's like, oh, I need to change the battery out. No, you're deconstructing it and rebuilding it. I have a lot of monorail track. I also use a lot of 3D printed track here and there too because it's hard to get a hold of straights in the United States. Everybody loves monorail, so they don't want to sell it very easily. So I use a lot of track from 4D Bricks. Some of their custom pieces, I use all their motor covers to really give you a good look because Lego only made one cover, and it was red from the airport shuttle, and it doesn't really match my space. So 4D Bricks actually makes the cover in like gray, black, white, and red. So it really adds a good detail because you can build a lot on the bricks on the edge of it. Has a lot of studs on it and stuff like that. Tom, that does 4D Bricks in Florida, has done a really good job. He sent me a lot of different parts and stuff like that. And we've tested out his automation, but I just don't have any automation on the track today. Usually I try to put it out there and work with it and stuff. Even one of my stanchions here, this is a 4D Brick stanchion that he's been trying to work with just to try to change the look up and make things seem a little bit more sleeker to my design and stuff like that. Then we got Benny's house right here on the end. You know, if this is all the little kids when the Lego movie came out were like, oh, it's Benny's base, and I'm like, okay, if you want to call it, that's fine. So I built a house for Benny and put the pink astronaut, so he's kind of kissing his wife goodbye and heading out to work, I guess. And so I found that with my display at the Children's Museum, all the kids want to touch. So if I figured, okay, let's give them something to touch. And my son had this plasma ball, so I built a plasma ball. I built all the Lego around it and said, hey, kids can touch this as much as they want. And if they touch that, they don't want to touch the rest of the Lego as much. And so they'll come over here and hold their finger on that plasma ball all day long and just kind of look at that little lightning going to their finger. And I'm like, okay, they can stand and look at that all day. And it kind of just gives them the ability to say, hey, touch that. Just don't touch anything else.
Don't grab the trains.
Yeah, don't grab the trains and toss those on the floor, or take a minifigure, or say, oh, that. And my display is really designed for kids and for the adults, especially the kids. The parents come in and say, "Oh, I had this as a kid. Oh, I had that as a kid. Oh, I remember that set." And I really like seeing the adults set. And then the adults will say, "Hey, when I was a kid at your age, I was building that set right there." And I really like that. And then they'll say, "I think I have that at home. Let's go dig it out and let's bring it back out and let's build it again and you can play with it and stuff like that." So I just like the nostalgia of the classic space display.
Yeah. So how long have you been working on this display then?
I started off, I think, 4 by 248s when I got my first monorail, and that was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then it just keeps exploding. Each year I buy more base plates, and I just keep making it bigger. I think I'm limited to the amount of tables they give me of how big I'll go. I always like my display to be filled with just stuff and things going on everywhere. I don't want it to be real thin and sparse. So, I mean, I spend more time putting everything on than I do setting up like the track and the buildings at first.
So it's a real kind of labor of love for you over the years now then as you've expanded on it.
Yeah, and I think my wife just keeps tolerating it. I can never display it at home, so I kind of put it all in boxes, and I label the boxes, and I say, well, I'm going to work on this section this week, and so I'll pull that box out and work on that section. And I always have to ask the guys, well, how much space do I get this time when we're displaying? In Houston, we do a lot of displays with the Children's Museum. We do stuff with Texas Children's Hospital. We use their Skybridge, and they ask us to come in a couple times a year. We do Comic Palooza in Houston, and Maker Faire is a big thing in Houston, and so we actually have a lot of public display time in Houston compared to some places.
Yeah. Well, very impressive. I'm glad you were able to bring out such a big display here to Brick Fiesta, and thank you so much for taking us through it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.